Wow. When Fixit said they were sending me to a beautiful world to explore, I thought that was all just propaganda. This place has beautiful vistas, incredible creatures, massive oceans, and I can't wait to exploit all of it for resources. Satisfactory is an incredibly fun factory building game that's all about building the most efficient factory that you can. Don't look at mine, okay? It's an atrocity. But some people build really good factories in this game that are not named Nate. But what's the point? Why are you delivering all this stuff up a giant space elevator? Who needs this? At the recording of this video, Coffee Studios just put out a video explaining what you need to know about the story in Satisfactory, and they cover some really high-level stuff, but I want to dig in because I think there's some more information we can pull out of this. Now, what we know for certain is, in the game, you're what's called a pioneer, and you're working for Fixit Inc. You've been dropped off on a random planet to exploit its resources and send those resources back up a space elevator back to Fixit. But what is Fixit using all these components you're sending them for? Well, on your specific planet, they're calling it Project Assembly, and that is what you're delivering stuff to. But Project Assembly is part of a larger initiative they're doing called the Save the Day program. But moving back down to the lower level Project Assembly, it seems like Project Assembly is something that's assigned to each individual pioneer on the planet they're on. And Project Assembly is broken up into 4 different phases. Phase 1 is called Platform, where you just make a few simple parts to send up to them to kind of prove your worth. Phase 2 is called Framework, where you start sending high volumes of parts that seem to be building a frame of a very large object. Phase 3 is called Systems, which you start seeing some modular engines and adaptive control units delivered, which implies you're building something that moves, something very large considering the amount of stuff you're sending up. And finally, Phase 4 gives us a much clearer picture of what we're building here. Phase 4 is called Propulsion. We start delivering nuclear pasta, magnetic field generators, thermal propulsion rockets. It's very likely here we're building a spaceship of some form. But let's go back and talk about that space elevator for a moment, because you have the portion that's on the planet, and, well, you have the portion that's in space, because, well, it's called a space elevator. You gotta have both. Elevator, go up into space. But not to the point. The fact that something is in space to drop down a space elevator to you implies that someone is watching over you. There's a spaceship above you that's receiving all these deliveries, which is a pretty high cost to be covering for one person wandering around a planet. And considering the investment that space elevator is on just the singular pioneer on this planet, it kind of explains why things are set up in phases and why you actually need to build the space elevator yourself. Fixit clearly has the resources to set things up on a planet on their own. They're dropping people from orbit. They're setting up space elevators. Like, they could get things moving a little faster if they said, all right, Pioneer, we're dropping you down this planet. The space elevator's been setting up. Start loading materials in there. But how do you know this new Pioneer you just hired is up to the job? Before you make that huge investment of dropping down a space elevator onto the planet, it might be good to see if this Pioneer can actually perform the tasks you need. So what better way to test them than to have them fend for themselves for a bit, figure out the planet, figure out how to harvest resources on their own? You've given enough equipment to make those things, but you gotta make sure that they can build a space elevator on their own, and if they do, they have proven themselves worthy of sending materials back up to fix it. And this is where the story takes a little bit darker of a turn, because there's clearly been some pioneers who were not up to the task. As you explore this beautiful landscape, you'll find all sorts of points of interest around that are clearly built by Fixit, and it looks like they have fallen apart or failed in some manner. You'll find crashed ships around that have their cargo hold locked, and in-game, you can hook power up to these to get materials from them, which is handy to help progress the game, but from the story, these crashed ships, were probably piloted by something, maybe a pioneer, who didn't do a great job, and now you're finding it, so you're not the first person to have been here. And seeing as there is no other space elevators around on the map, and you're building the first one, it's more likely than not that a lot of people have failed before you, because if someone built the space elevator, there would have already been one there for you to use. So this explains why they couldn't set up the space elevator for you right away, because they don't want to waste that investment where others have already failed. They want you to prove yourself first. But that doesn't exactly explain why we're sending the materials back in the first place. Alright, if you don't like the video, I gotta squash the lizard doggo in the hydraulic press.
Oh god, please no, I don't want to be squashed!
But if you subscribe to the channel, I'll let the lizard doggo operate the hydraulic press and crush things for your entertainment.
Oh my god, please pick that one. I'll crush the whole Tonka trucks and watermelons and stuff for you.
As I mentioned earlier, we know Fixit is running a program called the Save the Day program, which implies something's gone horribly wrong somewhere, and we can assume it's with Earth, because we're traveling through space and we're getting resources that we cannot get on Earth for some reason. Now, we know we're somewhere far away from Earth, because in the little explainer the coffee stand put out, they say that the Pioneer is on the planet Massage 2 ADB in the Acha system, which is, in fact, nowhere near Earth. That's not Saturn, that's not Pluto, it's out of our solar system. So, taking this into consideration that we are far from Earth, the name of the program, the Save the Day program, and the project assembly they're working on, we can pull some information. I suspect that a tragedy has happened on Earth. Something has happened to make it unlivable. It's probably a Wall-E-like situation where we've used up all the resources, we've polluted the planet to such an extent that we cannot live there, and we need to get resources from other planets around the galaxy. So we know we're trying to save Earth and humanity in some form. Maybe not Earth. Earth might be just destroyed at this point, not even worth living on. So we're looking for new planets. What would help in looking for new planets? Well, the list of things I read out earlier gives us a hint. Magnetic field generators, nuclear pasta, thermal propulsion rockets. We're building a spaceship. But what kind of ship are we building exactly? Our list of materials doesn't unfortunately give us any hints to what kind of ship it is, but I'm gonna take a guess and say because something dropped the space elevator down to us that obviously we traveled here somehow, there's a spaceship in orbit, and I suspect we're trying to build a second one of them so that can go off to another planet and drop down another Pioneer and continue the process. And hopefully this planet has enough resources that we can build more than one more ship and start having these proliferate around the galaxy to collect more resources. But that's not really a very good method for saving humanity and keeping people fed and stuff. That's a good way to build more spaceships and proliferate around the galaxy to mine more resources. Now, if humanity is exploring around this much, that means they've got to be looking for something. They're not looking for basic iron ore. You can find that on all sorts of planets. They're looking for something specific. They're more likely than not looking for an alien artifact that they know they need to save Earth. Maybe one showed up on an asteroid one day and they're like, wow, this can help us out, but we need so many more of them. We got to explore the galaxy to see if we can find a stockpile of said artifact. Maybe that artifact is some sort of alien technology from a long extinct civilization, like some super nuclear reactor that's even better and can create energy more efficiently. Or it's like an infinite food source or something where like you just add water and it infinitely grows corn. I don't know. What we do know is the planet that we are on has two very interesting alien artifacts, the Mercer Sphere and the Somer Sloop. For which some quick references out of Satisfactory here, the Mercer Sphere is actually named after Matthew Mercer of Critical Role fame, and the Somer Sloop looks a whole lot like the fancy S you would draw on a notebook or something if you were cool back in elementary school. Which, by the way, took me embarrassingly long to figure out how to draw that because I was, in fact, not a cool child. Okay, we're getting off topic. Back to the actual Mercer Sphere and Somer Sloop. In the game, when you get near these objects, your little AI assistant goes, you must harvest this. You need to, and it starts freaking out. Any other material, even if you find like uranium or something really cool, it's like, oh, you can use this to make better power generation. But these fancy artifacts, it's like, get this or else. This really proves that whoever made this AI has prioritized these artifacts, and like, you need to collect these. So this is more likely than not what humanity is actually searching for. Fancy artifacts from alien planets, and they just need the resources to build more spaceships to get to those artifacts. This really proves that whoever made this AI has prioritized these artifacts, and like, you need to collect these. So this is more likely than not what humanity is actually searching for. Fancy artifacts from alien planets, and they just need the resources to build more spaceships to get to those artifacts. And in the little lore explainer the coffee stand put out, they actually did talk about these Mercer Spheres and Somer Sloops. They said that they used to be very important to the story, but now they're kind of just story adjacent. So I expect these Mercer Spheres and Somer Sloops are not the answer to humanity's problems, but they're the type of artifact humanity's looking for. So these aren't going to fix everything, but this is the type of thing we want to look out for when we find other planets to explore. Which makes it even more interesting that your AI assistant Ada is so desperate to get these materials, even though they aren't the answer to humanity's problems. This kind of shows that humanity's getting desperate. Like, any of these, we have to collect on the off chance that it's the answer. Like, we probably don't have much time left to find this artifact that we need. This may explain, too, why they're only sending down one Pioneer at a time, or if you're playing multiplayer, a few Pioneers at a time, but overall, like, there's not an army of people coming down. There's not thousands of Pioneers setting up everything on this planet, because it would be faster if thousands of people were collecting resources rather than just one. This again points towards the idea that we might be in a Wall-E type situation here, where pretty much all of the remainder of humanity is on one large spaceship, and they can only afford to send down one person, because if that one person's taken out, we only have a few thousand more. Like, we can't afford to be losing people willy-nilly. And obviously, there are dangers on this planet and dangers in collecting all these resources. There's weird little armored hogs that'll charge at you. There's things that'll spit lava at you. Like, this is a dangerous planet. It may look beautiful, but there's things that can hurt you. But what we can pull from the game is very sparse on purpose. In the little explainer, they mentioned that they don't want the story to get in the way of the factory building, because at the end of the day, this is a factory building game that's been out for quite a long time in early access, and they don't want to force a story into the game and disrupt people's enjoyment of the factory building. But that's where the story is kind of nice, because you as the pioneer can kind of make up your own headcanon playing the game. Are you saving Earth from a famine? From a technologically superior alien race that showed up to try to capture Earth? I don't know. But whatever you're doing, you're working for Project Save the Day. So hopefully you've enjoyed this little bit deeper dive into the Satisfactory lore now that it's officially out in 1.0. And if you did enjoy, I'd love it if you left a like on the video and consider subscribing to the channel to see more content like this. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.